What's up? Good morning.
Good morning.
Super fucking early. I probably look like shit because I'm tired. This is Spectre here, which is our little ghost hunting team. I was just going to do a video. I don't know, I've been watching all these little ghost videos and stuff on YouTube and made me want to do a little ghost video. There's this grave in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, which is the next town over. And you'll hear me on like previous videos and stuff talking about my book dealer, Jerry Sampson. He's like a historian in Harrodsburg. He has a bookshop. But he actually put out a video which I seen on here. It's I put it in my playlist under Ghost. But anyways, there's a grave in Harrodsburg, and we kind of put together a little ghost hunting team. We got like 3 people right now. I mean, if anybody else who knows me or my friends and stuff, if anybody else wants to join and fuck around in some weird places, that'd be cool with us. But yeah, that was our first little thing, and I wouldn't even really consider it like a huge ghost hunting thing. Like there's a grave in Harrodsburg, Kentucky, and supposedly the story goes is that this woman, she checked into, it was called, at one point in time there was a hotel there, it was called Graham Springs, and after Graham Springs shut down, it became a military asylum that burnt down. But going back to when it was Graham Springs, this woman, she checked in with no luggage, nothing like that, and there's a grave, and it's just literally, it says unknown. And the story goes is that she checked in, and they had this big dance party. And like I said, no form of identification, no luggage, nothing like that. And she danced pretty much until she died. Like dehydration, wore herself out, died. I'll show you a little picture of the grave. But that's the grave there. It says unknown, hallowed and hushed be the place of the dead. Step softly, bow head. One thing I do have to say, and I know she'll agree with me on this one, is like hiking or anything like that, people have got to stop just leaving garbage and cigarette butts and trash and shit like that. That's one thing that fucking pisses me off. Pardon the language, but it is irritating. Is like, we do a lot of hiking and little day trips and stuff. Mm-hmm. And every place we go, you know, there's just trash and shit laying around. And another thing too, like when I took a picture of this, which you've seen in the picture, there's a little fence around it, so I couldn't really pick up the trash in it, and I didn't want to jump into a grave and defile it, you know, in any form. There's like a McDonald's cup in there. Yeah. Like for one, this is a park, which by the way, that is a plus to this. What was the park's name?
You wrote it on there.
Can't remember. Well, anyways, if you do go to this grave, though, it's a park. Like, there's a park behind it. There's, like, picnic benches and stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can have a picnic there and stuff, and I would suggest that. And bring your kids, man. You know, even if you're not going there to ghost hunt, if you're just going there to check it out, there's a playground and stuff. So not only is this a park that they're trashing, but it's literally a grave. Like, you are throwing trash on a grave, you know? And here in Kentucky, I don't know, people are bored and ignorant and shit like that. It's true, though. Like, I know. How many cases have you run across where, like, people are, like, bashing up tombstones and stuff? Like,
yeah, I hear a lot of that.
It's crazy.
And it's usually crazy teenage kids or college kids or something.
Yeah, where I work, there's actually a hostess. She started like this little petition, like a little team, like a little club, basically bringing attention of, you know, cool, that people are trashing tombstones. I don't understand who gets their rocks off like that. Like,
their kicks and giggles.
Yeah, shits and giggles, yeah. I mean, I don't get that. Like, oh, let's go out and destroy a grave. So, yeah, sorry to go off topic, but when we did go, that was one thing that I seen and noticed, and it pissed me off, is people defiling graves, for one. Which I hope people that do that get haunted.
Yeah.
And two, like, just littering in general. Like,
I like this planet.
Yeah. But anyways, that's here. I'll show you another picture of the grave. This one's without garbage in it. I think the garbage was on the other side of it. There's a distance picture. I'm not going to show you any pictures of my kid playing because this is a crazy world we live in. But there is a playground. I took multiple pictures of that. But I found an article. It's a unknown grave in Harrodsburg tied to ghost story. And it's by Marvin Bartlett. And it's that's basically the story I told you with Samson. Alright, sorry about that. We had to pause it to look up the park, which is
Young Park.
Young Park. We actually went in October, it was November 2016. But I'm actually going to read that article that I told you about, because it's not that long, and if you get bored, just exit out of the video. Let's see. There's not much left of Harrodsburg, of a once great resort, remnants of a wall and a spring house over a site, which actually I have pictures of that too. There is kind of like, it shows the original Graham Springs, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's like this big wall, and you can kind of look inside, but it's a little overgrown and stuff. But in the early to mid-1800s, Harrodsburg Springs Hotel was a showplace that drew wealthy visitors from far and wide. Local historians and antique dealer Jerry Sampson said it was a huge place in its time. They would gather there typically from May to October, what they called to partake in the waters. Just a real quick little side note too. Jerry Sampson, by the way, he has a radio station, so I'm going to do a little shout out there. It's a WHBN. It's an AM station, 1420-1420, and it's every Saturday at 10 a.m. He does, it's like 30 minutes. It's not very long, but check that out. But back to the article. Each year around this time, Sampson dusts off a story tied to a grave on the hotel grounds, a grave mark unknown. It's the story of a woman who checked into a hotel about 170 years ago. She came alone claiming her father was a prominent judge who would be arriving soon. They showed her to a room where she stayed until the grand ballroom was opened later that evening. The music began to be tuned up, Sampson said. Musicians rosined up their bows, and as soon as the first note struck, the beautiful young lady started gliding down the staircase, and she came and captivated everyone that was in her presence. The story goes that the woman joined in the very first dance, then the second, and then the third, as the men in the room lined up to capture her attention. She never sat down, dancing every dance, telling one of the men it was the happiest night of her life, and as the happy night was ending, sadness struck. The stranger collapsed into the arms of her partner and died on the ballroom floor. The hotel owners waited a week for someone to come to identify the body, but no one did. And they searched her room, and the only things there were a small trunk, was the dress that she arrived in, Sampson said. No journal, no diary, no ledger, nothing. So they buried her on the property near a large tree with a marker that commands respect. Hallowed and hushed be the place of the dead, step softly, bow head. Years later, the ballroom burned, the mineral springs dried up, and the hotel became a military asylum. Just a little side note too, researching this, because when I first found out about it through the article or whatever, or I just heard about it and looked it up.
On the news?
Yeah, it was a news broadcast. It's super hard to find any like history on Graham Springs or the military asylum that it became. So I'm guessing I would have to go to like the local library and look up the history or buy local history books. But yeah, it's kind of hard to find anything on this because it's a little rabbit hole in itself. Other fires followed, and the whole place was pretty much forgotten by the early 1900s, and so was the mysterious dancer until one night when a woman who was walking near the gravesite told friends she had encountered a ghostly figure. And the figure approached her and she said, "Can you help me, please? You see, I was dancing at the Harrodsburg Springs and I've lost my way," Sampson said. And the woman said, "Oh, my dear, don't you know? Harrodsburg Springs burnt to the ground more than 100 years ago." And with that news, the figure began weeping and disappeared, the figure of the lady who danced herself to death nearly 2 centuries ago. But those who've heard the story still come to what is known as Young's Park, looking for her, hoping to see her dancing in the moonlight, twirling to the music only she can hear. I know. Historians now believe the grave to contain the body of Mollie Black, a woman who disappeared from Tazewell, Tennessee around that time. But as long as the body stays buried, no one knows for sure. So yeah, the body is actually, some lady did an article in here, Old Mystery Cleared Up, or is it, from www.angelfire.com, and I actually came across it too, and I'll read it in a second, but supposedly the woman, they finally did identify her. It's Mollie Black. So I don't know why it still says unknown grave. I don't know if that's just lack of...
I think it kind of even says itself, though, honey, that they think it might be Mollie Black.
Yeah, I know it's just a theory, but they could at least put that on the gravestone, I would think. But that falls under Harrodsburg Historical Society.
Yeah, it'd be their duty to do that.
So, yeah, this is a rabbit hole. I mean, that's the gist of it, so I will read this article too. If you got the gist of it and you don't want to continue watching the video, go ahead and stop and check it out. It's Young Park in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. But anybody who wants to keep going down the rabbit hole, I'm going to read this little article here. It's not long. Just stay with us if you want, or exit out. But that's the gist of it, though. But this is actually getting into the lady who researched Mollie Black and stuff. I just don't want to do it in 2 separate videos, you know. It's Old Mystery Cleared Up, or is it? After 3/4 of a century, the exciting mystery of the unknown lady who danced herself to death at historic Graham Springs, Harrodsburg, has been solved by the revelations of an aged Lexingtonian who only recently learned accidentally that there had been any mystery at all about the lady's identity, and was surprised to learn that the world had been in the least excited about the dramatic incident of antebellum days. And least of all, that it was a mystery. In front of the hotel at Graham Springs, on the expansive grounds that surround the beautiful resort, is an old monument telling about the unknown lady buried here, who the gaiety of one of the nightly social functions held there before the 60s dropped dead on the ballroom floor while dancing. The crowd that gathered there around the beautiful lady was amazed and mystified to discover that not only did her escort not know who she was, but no one present knew her. All that was known was that she had come down south, and during the long years since, she has been referred to as the unknown lady, and her grave as the lone and mysterious grave. The solution of the mystery, after all this time, was as unexpected as the death of the young lady. Joseph W. Adams of Lexington happened to mention the incident recently to James Rupp, who lives on Loudon Avenue. Mr. Rupp said, "Well, I know who she was. You say nobody has found out in all these years?" And the story was unfolded by Mr. Rupp when a boy about 10 years old living in Tazewell, Tennessee, Joe Sewell, I guess that's how you pronounce it, who was...
Maybe Swell?
Sewell? Yeah. Who was 40 years old then, told me about his wife dancing herself to death at Harrodsburg. Her maiden name was Molly Black, and she was Sewell's second wife. I think they were estranged at the time, as Sewell had a spirit of wanderlust, and at the time of her death, he was on the road with a show, he told me. It seems that she has gone to the famous springs to enjoy the gay whirl of social life in those days, as was the general custom in the South. Today, with modern new facilities, such a mystery would be solved in a few hours, of course. But in those days of slow travel and communication, it is easy to conceive that her folks probably thought she was on an extended visit to relatives, and long afterward learned of her disappearance, only to attribute to the sudden death and the time thereof the way in some out of the way place. Sorry. Unknown to them. I really don't like the way this text is set up. Sewell's mother, who was named Ann Kelly, and with whom his wife had been living, was quite wealthy, and a small son at the time of her death, who was probably brought up in Laurel County, Kentucky, as Millie Black, was born there. So the mystery is solved, and there is a space on the monument over the long grave at Graham Springs. The word unknown may be erased, and Molly Black, wife of Joe Sewell, Tazewell, Tennessee. So, kind of the same opinion that I kind of have. But, yeah, so somebody went down a rabbit hole and discovered that it shouldn't be unknown grave, that it's Molly Black. Yeah. Somebody did their research, which we got to self-educate people. Sometimes you have to go down a rabbit hole, man.
Yeah.
And figure shit out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up to Harrodsburg Historical Society to update it if they see fit, but
I think there's more to it, though.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, again, most people usually stop and get a drink, rest. They don't just dance and dance and dance.
Maybe she was suicidal.
Could have been.
I mean, it says that her husband, they were kind of estranged at the time.
I mean, because he was traveling all the time.
Yeah.
He was never home.
I think, honestly, she was just, instead of divorcing, maybe she just left and was like...
Well, yeah, you can't really divorce during those times either.
And it would have been unacceptable for a woman.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she packed bags with nothing in it.
Yeah.
So, maybe she just was like, fuck it. Like, if I die, I die.
True.
I'll find somebody else. That's why she was dancing like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing's weird, but check it out.
Why would her ghost, though, then ask, to have help to find the spring again?
Asking directions. And, I mean, if you're a ghost and you're trapped in this reality...
Yeah.
And the springs are no longer there, you would be like, where's the springs?
Yeah.
And then somebody have to fill you in.
Yeah.
Hey, you're dead. Like, there is no springs.
Yeah.
That's why she was asking. I mean, that's what I would assume. But, yeah, check it out. Young Park, Harrodsburg, Kentucky. I'm off today. So is she.
Yeah.
And we don't have a kid today. Ha ha. All right. Y'all have a good day.